In December of 2017, the New York Times ran a story officially confirming for the first time ever government research into UFOs through a secret Pentagon project called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, or ATIP. Not only was the existence of UFOs, now called UAPs, confirmed, but so also was the fact that the government has no idea what these objects are, only that they're in our airspace and are probably beyond anything human beings could manufacture.
I'm holding in my hands the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, highly anticipated report, Preliminary Assessment, Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, which had everybody highly anticipating what that report might say. I do think there's some very interesting things that came out of this that are historic in the sense that our intelligence departments for the U.S. government are now admitting that the 147 cases of UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon, or more commonly known as UFOs, that have been witnessed by American jet pilots and military personnel on radar, sonar, that these devices are actually real. Now, what's interesting is that's the first time I know that the government has admitted that the phenomenon, commonly known as UFO, is real. It's not a figment of people's imaginations, and in most cases, it's not swamp gas or some of the other kind of stuff that Project Blue Book and the Condon Report years ago did, which has always been thought of as a kind of cover-up for the UFO phenomenon. Now, our government is telling us, yes, it's real, but we do not know what it is. In fact, they're saying at this point, they can't even determine how this technology could operate. It breaks everything we know about physics, about aeronautics, and most of the lawmakers, congressmen that have viewed the full report, which the public has not been allowed to see, that also includes top secret information, are admitting that they highly doubt that this is China or Russia or somebody else that have somehow came into extraordinary, beyond physics capability of air flight. So what is it? Well, they are literally officially saying it's unexplained, and for the time being, unexplainable.
While this was a shock to those who are only vaguely interested in the topic, it didn't come as a surprise to others. There have actually been a number of individuals throughout the years expecting this exact event, the day we would begin to receive official government disclosure of UFOs. I remember as a child, the topic of UFOs and extraterrestrial life wasn't really discussed. I grew up in a Christian family, Baptist church, and the generally accepted view of UFOs in that community at that time was that these are just demonic, and that was about the extent of it. Growing up, I still held on to my curiosity, and years later I began hearing of Christian pastors, authors, and speakers that were discussing the UFO phenomenon more in depth. This eventually led me to Dr. Thomas Horn and his extremely influential book with Chris Putnam, Vaticana, which deals with the UFO topic from a unique Christian perspective. A short while after that, I actually had the opportunity to work with Tom Horn at Skywatch TV and Defender Publishing. Throughout that time and continuing on into today, I've had the chance to personally ask experts in the field, both secular and Christian, what their opinion of the UFO phenomenon was. Now, this is just anecdotal, but when the topic of official disclosure came up, typically the secular experts would say something like, we gotta push for it, but we don't know when it's going to happen. But the Christian ones, while there wasn't as much of an emphasis on putting pressure on the government for it, would typically say disclosure is going to happen and it's going to be very, very soon. We actually have some taped footage of some of these experts predicting this day of disclosure from around a decade ago. In fact, as far as I know today, the footage from these tapes contains The last surviving interviews from Chuck Missler, Noah Hutchings, and Chris Putnam, who have since passed away, but were all very well known on the Christian side of the UFO discussion years ago. Throughout the years before and after the huge success of Vaticana, Tom Horn and his son Joe were planning to produce a documentary dealing with the UFO question.
All right, so it's a very simple question. Okay. What are UFOs?
They recorded all the interviews, but throughout the decade between then and now, new projects and developments in the world that required immediate focus kept coming up, as the UFO topic kind of seemed to die down a little. We always figured that we would end up using those tapes someday, but wanted to wait until the time was right. So here we are now, after the official beginning of disclosure, and it is absolutely the right time. As soon as I got the green light for this documentary, I began going through hours upon hours of footage and interviews from all those tapes. And on top of that, I wanted to conduct interviews with some of the same people, now a decade later, plus some new guests to get to the bottom of what's really happening with UFO disclosure, where it all started, and where it's headed in the future. To do this right, we really have to start at the beginning of this whole investigation, with Tom Horn and Chris Putnam traveling to Mount Graham to ask Vatican officials about their enormous infrared camera named Lucifer.
My interest in this phenomenon was first piqued during the 1970s through the 1990s when Monsignor Corrado Balducci, an exorcist, a theologian, and a member of the Vatican Curia, the governing body at Rome, and by the way, a guy who was a personal friend of the Pope's, started appearing on Italian national television to state that ETs were not only possible, but were already interacting with Earth, and that the Vatican's leaders were aware of it. Furthermore, speaking as an official demonologist, he actually said that the extraterrestrial encounters are real, that they are not demonic, he said. They are not due to psychological impairment or hallucinations, that they are not a case of entity attachment, but that those encounters, he said, deserve to be studied carefully. And then he went on to disclose how the Vatican itself has been closely following this phenomenon and quietly compiling material evidence, he said, from Vatican embassies around the world on the extraterrestrials and their mission. Whatever you make of his claims, Balducci was a member of a special group of consultants to the Vatican. He was a public spokesperson for Rome on the matter of extraterrestrial life as well as UFOs and abduction phenomenon, and his assertions have never been contradicted by the Holy Roman Catholic Church.
Tom Horn and I went to Mount Graham to get to the bottom of what the Jesuits are doing up there. This is the question that everyone's asking.
Hi, this is Tom Horn. I'm here with my good friend Chris Putnam. We are at the base of Mount Graham in southeastern Arizona. We're going to be traveling from 3,000 feet up to 10,500 feet above sea level, through twists and turns up a very dangerous looking road with no guardrails on it. And we are on our way to the VAT Observatory, the Vatican's Astronomical Technology Telescope, where we're going to be meeting with a Jesuit. And we're going to be talking to him about the Vatican's interest in the study of deep space, especially as it involves astrobiology. What else are we doing?
Well, I think that we're going to have a meeting with an engineer today who's going to explain to us some of the details of how the Large Binocular Telescope works, and particularly the details of the instrument they call Lucifer.
Yeah, it's actually called Lucifer.
It's called Lucifer, and it's used as an infrared gathering device. And I think it's very helpful when you're looking into deep space, trying to find Earth-like planets.
The Lucifer device has generated a lot of controversy from using a name that is classically associated with Satan. It's actually an infrared camera. There are some sorts of things that move around in the sky that can only be seen in the infrared spectrum. Perhaps they are looking for things that can't be seen in the normal light spectrum.
We were intrigued with Mount Graham because Arizona is quite famous for UFO activity phenomenon, witnessed by thousands of people across Nevada and Arizona, as well as the Mexican state of Sonora. The Phoenix Lights UFO, as an example, was the United States' actual largest mass sighting, not just because of the sheer number of witnesses, but because of the quality of their testimony. For instance, then acting Governor Fife Symington even testified in writing, quote, between 8 and 8:30 on the evening of March 13, 1997, during my second term as governor of Arizona, I witnessed something that defied logic and challenged my reality. A massive, delta-shaped craft silently navigating over the Squaw Peak in the Phoenix Mountain Preserve. A solid structure. Rather than an apparition, it was dramatically large, with a distinctive leading edge embedded with lights as it traveled the Arizona skies. I still don't know what it was. As a pilot and as a former Air Force officer, I can say with certainty that this craft did not resemble any man-made object I had ever seen. Documented activity like that suggests something inherently strange about the area, begging the question, does Arizona host a dimensional portal? A wormhole? While extra dimensionality is a possibility, needless to say, the Arizona area provides kind of a uniquely hospitable climate for the well-yoked marriage between Jesuits and extraterrestrials.
I think because of the Catholic system, because you have the mixture politically, syncretism, but their approach to reality is not just biblical alone. For them just to come out and say, we embrace this, they're there, they're real. I say they're real. I say they're really, really there. There's no question about that. The issue is what they are. When I don't see them in any way even suggest, hey, these could be really fallen ones, demonic, radically evil, bringing deception. When I don't see that in the discussion on their end, it's either they themselves are highly deceived, or is there internally acceptance? Have they engaged? Have they heard? Now we don't have just contactees. We have all over the world contactors that are looking to engage, looking, wanting. For anyone, even a Catholic priest or a Catholic astronomer, to say these are morally superior beings, we have to back up and ask the question, how would you know that? Obviously, they're revealing themselves as superior. They can outwit humanity, they can kidnap humanity, they can do sexual things to humanity. But tell us explicitly what you are, who you are, what you're made out of. And they're not giving us that.
Many, many years ago, Nita and I were driving up above Shoals Mountains by Tigard, Oregon. And I thought I saw like light reflecting on the windshield of my car.
Yeah.
And I kept, kind of being distracted by it. Finally, I start looking at it and I realize it's not light reflecting on the windshield. It's something way up in the sky.
I remember
and
this
it's
story.
doing stuff, right, that I couldn't understand. Long story short, I asked Nita, I said, are you seeing this? She was. We pulled over, got out of the car, looked up, and something circular, just the very traditional Josh depiction of a UFO, a silvery disc,
Right.
up in the sky, and it is doing stuff that nothing could explain.
Right.
Shooting literally hundreds of miles across the sky, stopping on a dime, doing all kinds of
Right.
squiggly, shooting back the other way, and I'm like, what are we looking at?
It defies all of the mathematics that could quantify any kind of a craft that we have any access or knowledge
Right.
of.
And so finally, it just shot up into space and disappeared. We get in our car, we're driving over to my dad's house, and we decided we're not even going to tell him. He's not going to believe it, or they'll just think we're crazy, right?
Yeah.
And so we didn't say anything, but the very next day, the #1 newspaper in Oregon, the Statesman Journal, had this headline. Hundreds of people across Oregon and Washington had witnessed a UFO.